Hey everybody, I would not have predicted years ago when I started this channel that multi-compound peptide blends would be front and center of mainstream discussion. Sure, there were a couple growth hormone augmenting compounds put together, but besides that, the industry really lacked that sort of thing. So today we're going to discuss the greatest theoretical and fundamental difference between GLOW and KLOW. It goes without saying that the quote-unquote research of these peptide blends are entirely anecdotal. I get questions asking what's happened in clinical trials where people have been given the KLOW blend, for instance, and I want to start off by rehashing there are no rodent data or clinical studies assessing these recreational peptide blends in any way, shape, or form. What we do have to varying extents are research teams that have looked at each piece. With BPC-157, GHK-Cu, and KPV, we've got some roots in the literature to hook onto, though it's worth noting with the peptide fragment TB500, we've got virtually nothing but an echo chamber of repeated claims without an original source, which is quite frankly a deceiving collection of data. If you want breakdowns of all the hallmark studies, niche articles, detailed deep dives, I encourage you to either look at my playlist or just search for one of the peptides on my channel, and you'll find a list of videos where I go through all available studies, case reports, pharmaceutical history, and the risks. I don't plan on going through all the intricate mechanistic details in this video, so I encourage you to check those out if you want the deep dives. Here, I want to zoom in on the question, what's the difference between what KLOW and GLOW seek to do? Now, this is obviously not set in stone nor any sort of advice, just a discussion I'd like to start with you based off the impression I've made, and I'm curious to hear yours too. As we know, GLOW is a 3-peptide blend: GHK-Cu, BPC-157, TB500, while KLOW adds tripeptide KPV. I've seen people say that GLOW is more cosmetic and KLOW is more recovery-oriented, but there's a different lens I'd like to use to analyze these two blends: repair signals versus repair environment. The idea is that GLOW is a stack that amplifies repair signals. KLOW is a stack that amplifies repair signals and modifies the repair environment. When somebody gets injured, for instance, let's say a tendon strain, a muscle tear, or a minor cut, the body doesn't just passively heal, it launches an active, coordinated repair cascade. Platelets enter to degranulate and release growth factors, immune cells get recruited, new blood vessels start forming through angiogenesis, fibroblasts migrate and start laying down new collagen, and eventually the tissue remodels. I would suspect GLOW is designed to turn up the volume on those repair signals at multiple levels of the cascade. BPC-157 targets angiogenesis. In preclinical models, it activates the VEGFR2 pathway and the ACT-ENOS axis, i.e. it favors formation of new blood vessels and generates nitric oxide, which dilates those vessels and improves blood flow, purportedly to the site of the injury. This is relevant to tissues with poor blood supply: tendons, ligaments, the myotendinous junction, where the bottleneck to healing is essentially poor plumbing. You can't deliver repair cells and nutrients to a site that doesn't have adequate vasculature. Now, I said the research behind TB500 is poor, and it is. So we're going to take what we know about its progenitor compound TB4 for this theoretical discussion and assume it's targeting cell migration. It's a G-actin sequestering protein that controls how the internal skeleton of cells assembles and disassembles. That cytoskeletal machinery is what allows repair cells to physically crawl to the injury site. Without it, fibroblasts and stem cells are stuck. And GHK-Cu is the remodeling step. It doesn't just build new collagen, it simultaneously activates enzymes that break down damaged collagen and stimulates synthesis of new collagen. We can, in a way, consider it quality control, demolishing the damaged wall to rebuild a stronger one. And it's also thought to modulate the expression of thousands of genes towards a more youthful profile, though this is an unfolding area of research, non-confirmed in any meaningfully specific manner just yet. But the point here is that GLOW is sending 3 distinct repair signals: build new blood vessels, move cells to the site of the injury, remodel the matrix. 3 different mechanisms, 3 different levels of the repair cascade. That's the theoretical elegance of the blend. But here's the question I want you to sit with. What happens when those repair signals land in a hostile environment? Because here's what the wound healing literature actually tells us, and this is well established. Healing happens in phases. First, inflammation, the immune system shows up, clears debris, kills pathogens. Second, proliferation, fibroblasts, new blood vessels, new tissue tissue, and third, remodeling, strengthening and reorganizing of that new tissue. A critical transitions from phase 1 to phase 2. Inflammation has to resolve for proliferation to begin. Simply put, if inflammation doesn't resolve, the process gets stuck. The proliferative phase can't properly initiate, fibroblasts show up, but the inflammatory milieu degrades their work. Collagen gets deposited, but in a disorganized, scarred pattern. New blood vessels form, but can't stabilize within inflamed tissue. The unfortunate error is the exact mechanism behind chronic, non-healing wounds. Things like diabetic ulcers, venous stasis ulcers, pressure injuries. The repair signals are present, however, the environment won't let them execute. Now, I'm not saying that people using KLOW have chronic wounds. Obviously, not all of them do, but the principle scales. If someone has even a moderate degree of unresolved inflammation at a tissue level, whether from overtraining, metabolic dysfunction, or the low-grade chronic inflammation that increases with age, that's called inflammaging, by the way, then repair signals are likely working against resistance. Inflammaging is, I know surprisingly, a real concept in the literature. It refers to a chronic, low-grade, sterile inflammatory state that emerges with biological aging. Damage-associated molecular patterns called DAMPs accumulate. Senescent cells pile up and secrete pro-inflammatory factors, macrophages lose their ability to efficiently clear debris, NF-kappa B stays chronically activated at a low level, contributing to a pro-inflammatory environment, and critically, this chronic inflammatory state inhibits the regenerative capacity of stem cells. The very cells the body needs for repair get suppressed by the inflammatory environment they're sitting in. So the question becomes, if someone's amplifying repair signals with KLOW, but the tissue environment has unresolved inflammation, are they getting the full benefit of those signals? This is where KPV enters the picture and where KLOW diverges from KLOW philosophically. KPV, lysine proline valine, is the C-terminal tripeptide fragment of alpha MSH, alpha melanocyte stimulating hormone. Now, alpha MSH is the hormone most people associate with skin pigmentation or tanning, but its tail end, these 3 amino acids, retains the anti-inflammatory activity of the full hormone without binding to melanocortin receptors and without causing pigmentation changes. And the way it works is genuinely fascinating. KPV directly inhibits NF-kappa B, the master transcription factor that controls the expression of dozens of pro-inflammatory genes. When NF-kappa B is overactive, there's excessive production of TNF-alpha, IL-1 beta, IL-6, the whole inflammatory orchestra that's helpful when someone has an acute infection, for instance, but deleterious when chronically triggered. KPV turns down the volume of that orchestra. It also suppresses the MAP kinase pathway, which is another major inflammatory signaling cascade. In mouse models of colitis, oral KPV reduced histological inflammation, lowered pro-inflammatory cytokines, and promoted the production of IL-10, which is essentially the body's own anti-inflammatory braking device. When I said this is a theoretical discussion about a plausible divergence between these two peptide blends, hopefully that idea is now more lucid. Keep in mind, dissecting every facet of a signaling cascade, the details of physiological equilibrium, and even listing everything we don't know about each of these peptides is way too in-depth for a YouTube video and arguably even most of the peer-reviewed research. However, the gist of the discussion is that KLOW is saying the repair machinery works, let's amplify the signals. More blood vessels, faster cell migration, better matrix remodeling. While KLOW in a way is saying the repair machinery works, and the reason it might not be working well enough is that the environment is too tumultuous. So let's amplify the signals and clear the disruption. And I think this comments on a really important and underappreciated concept in regenerative biology. It's not always about the signal strength, but rather sometimes it's about signal reception. You can scream instructions at a construction crew, but if the job site's flooded, those instructions don't matter. Now, you know how I do things on this channel. I'm not going to sit here and tell you one is better than the other, nor am I going to say I or anyone else is the all-knowing expert of the nebulous gray unregulated world of peptide blend administration expertise. That would require clinical data comparing them, and that data doesn't exist. Not for the individual peptides in combination, and certainly not for these branded blends. And I would comment, by the way, if someone touts that, perhaps remain a bit wary and check the description for an affiliate link. What I will say is this: the framework of repair signals versus repair environment is, I think, one of the most useful lenses for thinking about these two blends, at least in theory. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to help me out, like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out the Patreon to see if it's something you're interested in joining, and there should be some other links down there as well. Appreciate the time. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Cut. Cut to the chase, evidence-based. Pull up a chair, let's get this straight. Peptide buddy, he's your peptide buddy.